Are you curious about how some people are able to effortlessly persuade and influence others, while others struggle to even make a convincing argument? What if I told you there were 6 powerful principles of influence that you could learn and use to your advantage? If so, you're in for a treat, because in this video, we'll be exploring the groundbreaking book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, by Robert Cialdini is a classic in the field of psychology and a must-read for anyone interested in understanding how persuasion works. The book provides a comprehensive overview of the key principles and tactics used by persuaders to influence our behavior and decision-making. The book is divided into 8 chapters to explore various aspects of persuasion. In this video, we will explore the insights discussed in each chapters of the book in detail. Chapter 1, Weapons of Influence, begins by noting that we are constantly bombarded with messages designed to influence our behavior, and that many of these messages use subtle and often subconscious tactics to achieve their goals. He argues that by understanding these tactics and the psychology behind them, we can become more aware of the ways in which we are being influenced and make more informed decisions about how we respond. Cialdini then introduces the 6 key principles of influence that he will be discussing in the book, which are: 1. Reciprocation, the rule that people feel obligated to give back to others who have given to them first. 2. Commitment and consistency, the tendency to stick to a commitment or decision once it has been made, and to align future behavior with past behavior. 3. Social proof, the tendency to look to others for guidance on how to behave in a particular situation. 4. Liking, the tendency to be more easily influenced by people we like or who we perceive to be similar to ourselves. 5. Authority, the tendency to defer to those who we perceive as being in positions of authority or expertise. 6. Scarcity, the tendency to place a higher value on things that are perceived as rare or in short supply. Cialdini then provides several examples of how these principles are used in everyday life, including in advertising, sales, and politics. He notes that while these principles can be used for both good and bad purposes, they are incredibly effective at influencing human behavior and are therefore important to understand. Finally, Cialdini emphasizes that his goal in writing the book is not to teach readers how to be better manipulators, but rather to help them become more resistant to manipulation and more aware of the ways in which they are being influenced. He argues that by being more mindful of the tactics used to influence us, we can make better decisions and avoid being taken advantage of. Chapter 2 Inches Reciprocation, the old give and take, begins by discussing the universal expectation of reciprocity in human culture, where we feel obligated to repay others for what they have done for us. He then explores the power of the free sample technique, where companies offer free gifts, trials, or other incentives to get people to make a purchase. Cialdini explains that the feeling of indebtedness created by receiving a gift or favor is so powerful that it can lead people to make larger purchases or engage in other behavior they may not have otherwise considered. He cites research studies showing that people are more likely to donate to a charity or give a larger tip to a server when they have received a small gift or favor first. Next, Cialdini discusses the reject then retreat technique, also known as the door in the face technique. This technique involves making an initial request that is intentionally large or unreasonable, so that when it is rejected, a subsequent, smaller request seems more reasonable in comparison. He notes that this technique can be especially effective in negotiations or when asking for a favor. Cialdini also cautions against using the principle of reciprocation in unethical or manipulative ways, such as offering a small gift or favor in order to gain access to someone's personal information or to sell them a product they don't need. He notes that such tactics can ultimately backfire and damage one's reputation or relationship with others. Chapter 3, Commitment and Consistency, Hobgoblins of the Mind, begins by discussing how people have a strong desire to be seen as consistent and to stay true to their commitments. He explains that when people make a public commitment, they feel a greater obligation to follow through on that commitment. Cialdini goes on to discuss the foot in the door technique, which involves making a small request and then following up with a larger request later. He explains that when people agree to the small request, they are more likely to agree to the larger request later on, due to the desire to be seen as consistent. Cialdini also explores the low ball technique, where a person is initially offered a deal or opportunity that seems too good to pass up, but then the terms are changed after they have already committed to it. He notes that people are often more likely to go through with the deal, even if it is less favorable, because they feel committed to it. Next, Cialdini discusses the power of written commitments, such as pledges or contracts, and how they can increase the likelihood of follow-through on a commitment. He also notes that even small actions can create a sense of commitment, such as filling out a survey or signing a petition. Cialdini then explores the concept of cognitive dissonance, which occurs when a person holds two conflicting beliefs or attitudes. He notes that people will often change their behavior in order to reduce the discomfort of cognitive dissonance, which can be used as a persuasive tool. Chapter 4, Social Proof, Truths Are Us, begins by discussing the power of social proof, which is the tendency for people to conform to the actions and opinions of others in order to fit in or be part of a group. He explains that social proof is a particularly powerful influence tactic because people often assume that the actions of others reflect correct behavior or attitudes. Cialdini provides several examples of how social proof is used in advertising, such as by showing testimonials from satisfied customers or using statistics to show how many people have already purchased a product. He notes that these tactics can be effective because they tap into the desire for social acceptance and the belief that others have already done the research or testing. Next, Cialdini discusses the phenomenon of pluralistic ignorance, which occurs when people privately reject a norm or belief but assume that others accept it, leading them to conform to it publicly. He explains that this can lead to a dangerous cycle where no one speaks out against harmful or incorrect behaviors or beliefs because they assume that everyone else accepts them. Cialdini also explores the concept of the uncertainty principle, which suggests that people are more likely to look to others for guidance when they are uncertain or unclear about a situation. He notes that this can be a particularly powerful influence tactic in emergency situations, where people may look to others to determine the appropriate course of action. Cialdini then discusses the idea of creating the illusion of popularity, such as by planting people in a crowd to applaud or cheer, or by creating fake lines outside a store or restaurant. He notes that this tactic can be used to create a sense of excitement and demand for a product or service, leading others to follow suit. Chapter 5 Inches Liking, The Friendly Thief, begins by discussing the power of liking and how it can be used as an influence tactic. He explains that people are more likely to say yes to someone they like and trust, and that the factors that contribute to liking are often unrelated to the merits of the request or proposal. Cialdini then outlines several factors that can increase liking, such as similarity, praise, and physical attractiveness. He notes that people are more likely to like and trust those who are similar to themselves, who complement them, and who are physically attractive. Next, Cialdini explores the concept of ingratiation, which is the process of trying to win someone over through flattery, favors, or other forms of positive reinforcement. He notes that ingratiation can be effective because it appeals to people's desire for social acceptance and can make them feel good about themselves. Cialdini then discusses the idea of conditioning and how it can be used to create positive associations with a person or product. He provides several examples, such as associating a product with positive emotions or experiences, or pairing a message with a likable celebrity or spokesperson. Cialdini also discusses the power of mere exposure, which is the tendency for people to develop a preference for things that are familiar to them. He notes that this can be used as an influence tactic by repeatedly exposing someone to a person or product, which can increase their liking and trust. Chapter 6, Authority, Directed Deference, begins by discussing the power of authority and how it can be used as an influence tactic. He notes that people are more likely to comply with requests or orders from those in positions of authority, even when those requests or orders are unreasonable or unethical. Cialdini then explores several factors that contribute to the perception of authority, such as titles, clothing, and symbols of status. He notes that people are more likely to view those who possess these factors as authoritative and trustworthy. Next, Cialdini discusses the concept of automatic response to authority, which is the tendency for people to obey authority figures without question. He provides several examples, such as the Milgram experiments, which showed that people would deliver what they believed were painful shocks to others simply because an authority figure instructed them to do so. Cialdini also explores the role of expertise in the perception of authority, noting that people are more likely to comply with requests or advice from those who are perceived to be experts in a particular field. He provides examples of how this principle is used in advertising and sales, such as by using doctors or other professionals to endorse a product. Cialdini then discusses the concept of the illusion of invulnerability, which is the belief that those in positions of authority are less susceptible to harm or error. He notes that this belief can lead people to blindly trust authority figures and to accept their decisions without question. Chapter 7, Scarcity, the Rule of the Few, begins by discussing the power of scarcity as a motivator for human behavior. He notes that people are more likely to desire and value things that are perceived as scarce, whether they are actual resources or social opportunities. Cialdini then explores several factors that contribute to the perception of scarcity, such as limited availability, exclusive access, and time constraints. He notes that people are more likely to desire and value things that are limited in these ways. Next, Cialdini discusses the concept of psychological reactance, which is the tendency for people to desire something more when they believe their freedom to have it is being threatened. He notes that the perception of scarcity can create a sense of psychological reactance and make people more motivated to obtain the scarce resource. Cialdini provides numerous examples of how the principle of scarcity is used in advertising, sales, and politics. For example, he discusses how limited time offers and exclusive access can be used to create a sense of urgency and motivation to purchase a product or service. He also discusses how the fear of missing out, FOMO, can be used to motivate people to attend events or participate in social activities. Cialdini also explores the concept of social proof and how it relates to scarcity. He notes that people are more likely to desire and value things that are perceived as popular or in high demand. He provides examples of how this principle is used in advertising and sales, such as by promoting products as best sellers or top-rated. Finally, Cialdini cautions readers to be aware of the influence of scarcity and to make sure that they are making decisions based on their own needs and values, rather than simply being swayed by the perception of scarcity. He notes that it is important to consider the actual value and utility of a resource, rather than simply being motivated by the perception of scarcity. Chapter 8, the final chapter of Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, is titled Conclusion, Instant Influence, Primitive Consent for an Automatic Age. In this chapter, Cialdini emphasizes the importance of understanding the principles of influence and using them ethically. He argues that in today's world, where we are constantly bombarded with information, we rely heavily on shortcuts and automatic responses to make decisions, which makes us susceptible to manipulation. Cialdini urges readers to be aware of these shortcuts and to actively think critically about the information presented to them. He emphasizes the importance of being skeptical and cautious, especially when making important decisions. The author also briefly touches on the concept of psychological reactance, which is the tendency for individuals to react negatively to attempts to limit their freedom or choices. Cialdini suggests that this reaction can be avoided if the persuader presents their message in a way that preserves the listener's sense of freedom and control. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more, you can find a link to the full book, as well as the Kindle and audiobook versions, in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel to continue your journey on the shortcut to self-improvement.